Compañeros, friends and comrades, let me first say how much I appreciate the chance to join the World Tourism Day events of your union again this year. I want to thank Paco and his team for the invitation to join you here over these few days. Last year, we were in Asturias discussing climate change, which remains a major challenge to our global society and which will get focus again in Copenhagen this year. This year, we're facing up to another major challenge for unions, governments and employers, that of diversity. And that inevitably means we need to confront the uncomfortable truth that when we address diversity, we do so on behalf of many who are marginalized and mistreated, on behalf of many whom some would prefer to see remain in the shadows as a group open to the worst forms of exploitation. The IUF has a global membership, and as such we are privileged to work with unions all over the world who face and overcome major challenges and have done so for a very, very long time. Their members have overcome those challenges through organization built on determination and often on great courage, sometimes in the face of extraordinary hardship and dangers. They have overcome also as a result of a set of principles that anchor the labor movement and make it what it has been, what it is, and what it will be tomorrow. In changing times, we must develop changing methods and approaches, but we must also retain the values which have stood us in such good stead through the enormous challenges we faced and face today. One of those core values which should always bind us is our absolute conviction that all workers are equal. All are potentially our members, potentially our strength, and all are our comrades, no matter what their job, their race, their sex, their origins, their religion, or their sexual preferences. No matter how diverse they might be, when joined together, they ultimately bring each other strength and are empowered. The strength and empowerment we need to make progress, to develop our society sustainably, and to resist a return to barbarism with massive economic exploitation at its core. And yet, if we're honest, the institutions of the labor movement, trade unions, have not always embraced diversity in ways we can be proud of. There have been times in the past when unions have excluded the unskilled, have excluded women. In some countries, unions were built on racial grounds. In South Africa, for example, unions excluded black workers for decades. Consistently over decades, we have seen unions that neglected, refused to include, or were legally prevented from including migrant workers. Unions that have denied diversity. Today, many of our affiliates, for example, our affiliates here in Spain, are making sure that does not happen now and cannot happen again in the future. They are, as never before, reaching out and drawing in groups of workers whom in earlier times might have found themselves ignored. There is a long way to go, and there remains much to be done. But there is at least now a clear change. In 2003, in the USA, the hotel and services sector and the agricultural sector unions led a first ever march of 1,000 immigrant workers across the entire United States, ending with a rally of 200,000 people, reminiscent of the civil rights marches led by Martin Luther King. In doing so, they changed US trade union policy from one of marginalization of immigrant workers to one of inclusion, and welcomed thousands of new members into unions as a result. In countries throughout Europe, unions are developing their ways of working to bring in a greater diversity of members than ever before. For example, in London, unions are joining with organizations representing immigrant worker communities to bring the dignity of union membership to workers in the hotel industry which up to today has been devoid of unions and therefore devoid of an ability for those workers to defend their dignity and their interests.